I'm a hard-working man.
Hi, this is Concrete Charlie. Thank you for tuning in to Ask Concrete Charlie. We've covered an awful lot of material in our first 8 episodes, so I figured it would be a great opportunity to spend this show answering emails to summarize our first 2 months. I've been encouraged by the responses to our podcasts. I'm glad we've been able to provide some insight into the concrete repair and waterproofing industries. The opportunity to set the record straight by focusing our 35 years of experience to educate has been rewarding for us too. So without delay, I'm going to begin with an email from John in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Dear Concrete Charlie, I have a crack in my foundation and I recently had someone out to give me an estimate. Fortunately, after listening to your episode number 2, I didn't let them talk me into a drain tile installation. I appreciate your advice and will save approximately $6,500 by knowing where the water is coming from and knowing the exact repair I need. However, the estimator told me that I would find another crack on the opposite wall if I took down the paneling. Is he being serious, or is he just trying to find more work to do?
Thank you, John. I'm glad you were able to identify the problem and avoid being sold repairs that you didn't need. As far as multiple cracks are concerned, it is true that foundation cracks normally have a match on the opposite wall. As a matter of fact, you will rarely find only one crack in a foundation. That's not to say that if you find a third crack, there must be a fourth, but you will always find at least 2. Most foundation cracks occur to relieve the stress caused by the water evaporating from the mix when the concrete is curing. We call these shrinkage cracks because the concrete is trying to contract as the water evaporates, but is unable to because the forms force the concrete to stay in place. In order to accommodate the loss of volume from the mix, the concrete will fracture. This also explains why there are common places to look for cracks: window openings, beam pockets, corners, and areas where the forming is complicated, like bay offsets, will be the most likely areas to experience cracking. This is because those areas are weaker and more susceptible to cracking. So you see why logically one crack alone is very unlikely. However, locating and repairing foundation cracks when the basement is finished should be left up to what you feel comfortable with. You could end up opening most of your finished walls to locate all the cracks. Usually, I recommend that you address what you know is a problem. If your walls were uncovered, I would always advise to repair all of the cracks. But once the basement is finished, it becomes really hard to justify tearing out all of your drywall to reveal the other cracks. You'll find out if any other cracks become a problem. They'll either leak or you'll see the movement in the masonry. At that time, you can open the wall to address the ones that are problematic. The next email is from Claire in Battle Creek, Michigan.
Dear Concrete Charlie, I've enjoyed your podcast and look forward to each new episode. I get water in my basement when it rains, but only in certain areas. I'm willing to open up my finished walls to make the repairs, but I would like to know how to determine where to open them. Obviously, I know the general area, but I was hoping there were telltale signs of where the cracks are so I can minimize the amount of drywall I have to repair. How can I better pinpoint the crack locations?
Great question, Claire. One way to determine the area to open is to inspect the floor at the wall and see if there are stains that are more concentrated in certain spots. You can remove the baseboard and see if there are areas with a lot of mold on the bottom of the drywall. Also, spongy or soft spots at the bottom of the drywall are good indicators of where the water is entering. From the outside, you can walk around and look at the top of the wall. Wherever there are cracks, you will see them at the top of the wall. Cracks will extend from the top of the wall down the wall and will break all the way to the outside. So there may be a combination of methods you'll have to use to locate all the cracks, but ultimately you'll minimize the amount of wall you have to open. Finally, I'm going to answer a question from Chuck in Quincy, Illinois.
Dear Concrete Charlie, after listening to your podcast about top-of-wall seepage, my seepage problem is now very clear to me. When it rains hard, I can see where the water comes in over the top of the wall, and it's all along the south wall. The problem is I have a sidewalk along that side of the house. I don't know how you could do your normal repair. Can I just put caulk in that seam where the walk meets the house?
Thanks, Chuck. Whenever we get a very heavy rain, I get called out on estimates where water is seeping in over the top of the wall. When there is concrete up against the house, the top of the wall will leak if that concrete is pitched toward the house. I often suggest that homeowners try to caulk that joint to avoid having to either saw cut or completely remove the concrete to access the top of the wall joint. In these cases, the likelihood of success is pretty low, but I would rather have them try caulking first, so if it's not successful, they won't second-guess their decision to incur the expense of concrete removal in addition to the top of the wall repair. Well, it's been nice to be able to catch up on a few questions from our listeners. Look for our next episode when Tim and our other usual cast of characters will be back. Don't forget to send your emails with your questions and stories to charlie@concretecharlie.com. You can go to my website, www.concretecharlie.com. You can see my videos on my channel at YouTube, /TheConcreteCharlie. Every podcast episode will be uploaded to YouTube, so if you don't have a video MP3 player, you can still see any video we include with our show. Thanks again for tuning in, and don't forget, if you don't ask Concrete Charlie, you probably won't get the right answer.
For working man.